What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Chris, and Shad. What's going on, fellas?
What's up? What's
Glad to be
up?
back. Glad to be back.
Glad to be back. Definitely back at it. Just got hit with some breaking news right before we hopped on. We touched on it a little bit last week in terms of some of the teams that could possibly be on it, but the Chicago Bears have officially been announced as the participants that will be on the Hard Knocks series on HBO. Lots of potential storylines there. Obviously, the number one overall pick in Caleb Williams. You know, there's been much about his personality, his fingernails, him crying, whatever there is. So getting to learn a little bit about him. But aside from that, what are some storylines that you guys are looking forward to in that Hard Knock series?
I think. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, I guess it's the obvious, just the offense. I mean, they got some weapons over there, with the draft pick of Doomsday, and then having Keenan Allen over there, and then obviously we just said Caleb Williams, picking up DeAndre Swift. Just interested to see how they integrate with each other. I know it's training camp. They obviously gonna have hella storylines. The day we already been hearing. Well, I've heard already, he been messing up already. You just gonna get random shit. So it's gonna be interesting, especially for no one pick. So there's all eyes gonna be watching. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, no, this shit about to do numbers for sure. Like this is like the perfect setup for them being eligible this year and everything. This is the perfect storm that's about to happen, and I'm all for it because I'm glued in. I want to see what the fuck's gonna happen. The storyline I'm looking for is I would say more about Eberflus and kind of like an insight into his coaching style. Of course, he was on the hot seat last year. Whether it was true or not, but we assume that he was on the hot seat and pretty much saved his job based on how they played the last 6-7 games of that season.
He is on the hot seat now.
And he is on the hot seat now, exactly. And then, of course, the new coordinator coming in, Shane Waldron. So just to get an insight on how, his style that I have no idea about, to be honest with you. So I think that's a good storyline to keep, to look at, and because all eyes are on Eberflus this year. He's coaching for his job, essentially. So this is the start of it.
He's definitely coaching for his job, and it'll be interesting because, typically, I feel like typically the teams that end up making Hard Knocks are not the teams that end up in the playoffs in the end. I feel like it always ends in some type of heartbreak just because maybe it's due to all the access. We just saw last year Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, they had all the hype. They had, obviously, Hard Knocks was following them. We saw how that resulted. Not to say that that's going to happen or anything like that. So it would be interesting to see how the totality of their season and what ends up happening in this conclusion. But I think that Keenan Allen is going to end up being a big star on that show. He typically, when we've seen interviews with him and stuff like that, he seems like a pretty chill dude as well as a pretty funny dude as well. But just him, obviously, they're going to probably touch on his transition from LA to Chicago. And how that maybe even how the trade went down and stuff like that. They might even have the behind the scenes on him. They're definitely going to have some access in terms of the Rome Odunze and the Caleb Williams. So I think that'll be pretty cool because I'm sure they're going to touch on the draft and stuff like that. So that'll be pretty cool to see their behind the scenes in that process. If they touch on it, maybe that first episode or second episode.
Yeah.
And then the defense, ultimately, obviously, Jalen Johnson just got a big contract. Montez Sweat just got a big contract. So it'll be interesting to see, they obviously ended the season on a high note, but it'll be interesting to see if they continue that moving on into this year. And there's a lot of hype behind the Bears.
It is.
There's a lot of hype behind Caleb Williams, a lot of hype behind the Bears. So, watching all of it play out, like you said, with Eberflus and are we saying this is a lame duck season for him? Because, what's the expectations? And are we going to be able to see that? What's the expectations in terms of what's a good season for him to continue to go, or we, move on to a different coach? So, and the Bears I believe they're making a new stadium, right?
They're in the process. I think they're a couple years away, but yeah, they picked the place. So, they got a place. They got a outline picture of it. So yeah.
I'm sure they're going to talk about that too. So, we got to see that in the past with Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. So that'll be interesting to see if they even have anything up and created and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But sticking with the NFL, Up until the NFL season, we're probably what, like
98.
95
I think it was
days,
98.
98 days away from the NFL season. Obviously, we're going through OTAs right now, so we've seen some clips. Rookies, obviously Caleb Williams. As Chris mentioned, heard some stuff about him already. Some good and some bad, which is to be expected. It's OTAs, but getting into that period, we're almost done with the OTA period, so we're going to get into training camp here in the next month or two. Leading up to that, we're going to go ahead and give our top tens at each position outside of O lineman, because I'm not an O lineman expert. I'm not an expert on any of this, but we're definitely not O lineman experts. Yeah. But in no particular order, just the guys that we project by the end of the season. We're going to be looking back on it and be like, all right, these are the top 10 guys, or the 10 guys that had the best season of this upcoming season. So to start, we're going to go ahead and get into the receivers. A lot of receiver movement, a lot of receiver drama with contracts. Shout out Jalen Waddle signing a huge contract today as well. But let's go ahead and get into it. Cass, Chris, which one of y'all want to start?
Go ahead, I'm interested. Let's see how many equals you got on yours.
Watch out. All right, for my top 10, I have Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, Jamar Chase, Amon St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams. I have Marvin Harrison Jr., I have Keon Coleman. And then I snuck somebody that I actually like. Y'all might not like the squad, but Chris Olave.
No, he's solid. No, okay. Well, okay. Hold on.
Chris Olave and not Garrett Wilson.
I don't believe in the Jets right now. I gotta see what about them.
Talk to me more about your Keon Coleman though.
Hey, they got. Hey, look. For me, it's not only they. I know they picked up what's his name from the Chargers.
Curtis Samuel.
Oh, I was talking about Chargers.
Receiver
Mike Williams.
Oh, or did he go to the Jets?
He had the Jets.
Oh, he went to the Jets. Never mind. Anyway, but they got rid of Stephon Diggs, and so I'm looking for Keon Coleman to step up and take that spot. He's bringing in energy, and I think he will bowl well with that organization. I think him and Josh Allen gonna hit it off really good. Build on upon last year. I know they were towards the end of the last year they started running the ball a little more, but I think he's gonna create some good mismatches for him, and I think he's gonna feed him. So that's why I picked him.
It's interesting. It was actually a quote today. I do like it. It was actually a quote today that I think Khalil Shakir came out and said that everybody's gonna eat in this offense. So I don't know how much, and they do got two bona fide tight ends that they can get involved as well. So it'll be interesting. True. But Keon Coleman, look, I think he was, he lost a little bit of hype after running his 40 a little bit from media perspective. I don't know about teams and all that, but media perspective, he kind of lost that hype, and it was like, okay, well, what can he do? But I've seen videos he working out with his quote unquote cousin CeeDee Lamb. So we'll see.
Everybody cousin.
Everybody, how that shit goes.
And also, aside from his 40, he was one of the guys that was really ascending throughout the entirety of especially the beginning of the college football season. Obviously, he transferred over to Florida State, and then Jordan Travis got hurt.
Yeah.
And it seems like the shine, even though Florida State ended up having a tremendous amount of people getting drafted, it seems like just for the rest of the world, it seems like the shine kind of got off of Florida State and how many.
As soon as the quarterback got hurt, yeah.
Even Jared Verse was dominant in college football. Obviously, he still ended up going in the first round, but some people were thinking that he might drop out or go at the bottom. So a lot of their athletes obviously tested well at the combine too. So I really like that one. Keon Coleman, I think, if not this year, it could be soon.
Yeah. I respect that. And then you have Marvin Harrison Jr. too, so I like that one as well. Definitely projection, of course, but obviously he's instantly their number one receiver. So, it's going to come with it with Kyler. All right, I'll go with mine. My first 6 are pretty much chalk with yours, Chris. Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Amon St. Brown. Those are the easy ones, pretty much. But I got AJ in my top 10 as well. I got AJ Brown in my top. I am expecting still a big. He just got his contract too, of course. Along with his, wide receiver mate. But I'm still expecting a big year. He did have that stretch this past season where he had, 6 straight games of 125 plus yards?
125,
yeah. So, I mean, he's still a dominant receiver. I got Devontae Adams in my top 10 as well. And then I got a couple that I got Cooper Kupp still in my top 10. Now, I know it, Puka had an amazing year last year. Cooper Kupp, he had a lot of injuries, you know what I mean? But he's still their number one option. He's still Matt Stafford's. I feel like he's still Matt Stafford's favorite option. And, they like to throw that thing. So I got him, and I got Drake London. And I put him here mainly because of what we see from Kirk historically and how he targets his alpha. Arthur Smith did Drake. And I think he did Drake dirty last year, past couple years. Like, he likes to use his stars as decoys a lot. You know what I mean? And then on top of the quarterback play. So I think Kirk will set him up, in advantageous situations. And I'm expecting a big year from Drake London. And I'm gonna round it out with Brandon Ayuk, which, hopefully, if he stays with the 49ers.
See, I would have used. I was going to say him, but they whole situation over there.
It's a little murky still.
So I was like, I'm gonna leave him off now.
Murky. I think Debo's about to end up in like Buffalo or something.
See, but I'm just saying, somebody gotta go. It's just weird. So I just I'm gonna keep away. I'm gonna stay away from that.
You think Debo over
June 1st is 2 days away?
Yeah,
so.
June. Facts. So you think Debo goes over Brandon? They'll get rid of.
Yeah, bro.
We'll see.
For sure. I mean, the Pearsall. I mean, there's nobody like Debo, but if you're talking in terms of like who is doing similar things, I feel like he's more similar to a Debo than he is. So
I hear you now.
They targeted Brandon Ayuk like he's the number one. But I mean, I like the list too. I mean, I figured you were going to say Drake. I think it's funny that you didn't say AJ as a definite, but you said some of the other CD as a definite, AJ not a definite, even though obviously CD was all pro. What you think, Chris?
The Drake one interesting only because I get what you're saying, but I just feel like, I don't know. I get the Kirk aspect of him targeting number one receiver, but I mean, I feel like because of what y'all used our draft pick on last year, that y'all going to try to feature him a little bit more.
That's fair.
And with Kirk coming off an injury, y'all might not want to drop him back. But
it depends. I mean, because it's a lot that we don't know right now. Because we don't know what Zach Robinson's offense is going to look like and everything. It's pure projection. And I was struck like Drake. Honestly, between Drake and Garrett Wilson, I was going to have one of those two in for sure. And I'm expecting big things from Garrett Wilson. But I'm going to come.
I ain't gonna lie, I really forgot about Garrett Wilson until Sean said it.
That's tough. Nobody said Diggs.
See, the thing about Diggs is the same reason I didn't have any of the Bears receivers in. And we're talking about top 10 receiver. I'm talking about like overall production, right? And when you have to split as much as they will have to split, they kind of cancel each other out to me.
And a dog always gonna step up.
That's true. That's true. But who's that dog gonna be? Is it gonna be Diggs or is it gonna be somebody else? And then who's gonna be the one in Chicago? Will Caleb have
DJ Moore?
You think it'll be DJ Moore?
For sure.
Could be wrong. I don't know.
I mean, Keenan is I think it's for sure.
We'll see.
For sure. Unless he get hurt.
Another storyline.
We'll see. But to get into mine, I mean, like y'all said, there's a few obvious ones. Amon-Ra St. Brown signing a big contract this offseason. Jamar Chase soon to sign a big contract this offseason. Justin Jefferson soon to sign a big contract this offseason. CD soon to sign a big contract this offseason.
Yeah.
AJ signed a big contract this offseason. And Tyreek Hill, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised seeing how everything else is going. And even with AJ getting, a re-up of his money, I could see Tyreek doing the same.
Well, them babies, you're going to have to get one.
Yeah, facts. And obviously, I think probably all of us, I mean, those were the easiest ones. And then everything else is kind of like, damn, it's just like opportunity. And stuff like that. Devontae Adams, I gave him the nod. I think he's got one more year, but I mean, I think he's one of the shaky ones. If I were to have somebody coming out the top 10, Amari Cooper, I actually have in as well. Amari Cooper he snapped obviously towards the end of the season with Joe Flacco, but he with Deshaun Watson, I mean, I think he was top 5, top 6 in receiving, or maybe top 10 in total in receiving yards this season. With the
4 different
rotating
quarterbacks.
door
Yeah.
at quarterback,
Yeah.
So I think he continues to do his thing. I do have Garrett Wilson in. I mean, it was poised for him last year. I think it's just
Poised
he's gonna get
again.
his just due with Aaron Rodgers this year. And I got Michael Pittman Jr. getting in there. He's been knocking on the door the past few years. This is his first. I mean, technically, it's not his first time having a consecutive quarterback in consecutive years, but technically it is because he obviously started with Anthony Richardson. But this is one specifically opportunity. I mean, he's going to feast on all. I mean, he obviously had. I think he was top 5, top 6 in receptions this past season. But with Jonathan Taylor hopefully having a fully healthy season, and Anthony Richardson hopefully having a fully healthy season, I think he is one of the biggest beneficiaries for this next season.
I knew you had Pittman.
But it was tough. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a lot of guys that are like, right there. I mean, Jordan Addison. I mean, he can have another ascension. I mean, really, any of the receivers from last year's rookie class in terms of Puka, Zay Flowers. They've been hyping Rashad Bateman up
I saw that
in Baltimore, so we'll see how he does. Obviously, if I didn't have IU, Chris didn't have IU, Debo, it's some Mike Evans, Diggs, Nico. It's so many receivers. Calvin
Waddle.
Ridley,
Shit.
Waddle, DeAndre Hopkins. It's DK. We didn't even Terry McLaurin. We didn't even.
Crazy.
But okay, let's dig into that a little bit deeper because we did see, of course, that Waddle got his new contract. That puts him, I think, 4th overall and average annual. How do y'all feel about the way this is trending for these top guys and the market correct itself in a year or two? I guess you could say.
I mean, I think for some people, the market has corrected itself. Like, for example, the Colts signed Michael Pittman Jr. earlier this offseason. At that point in time, it was a top 6, I think, contract, maybe even top 5. I think right now he's sitting at 11. So we know obviously with every position, almost every position, somebody's going to be, exceeding that door, knocking on the door to push it forward, push the money forward. But I think eventually it's gonna slow down. I think it's slowed down a little bit, which is why we haven't seen the JJ, CD, Jamar contract come in yet. But I do think it's gonna slow down because like people have been talking about is receivers coming in every year. We already talked to Chris just had 2 receivers that are rookies in his top 10 at the end of the season.
Exactly.
Chris Olave is another one who's second or is in his 3rd season. So we got a bunch of young guys that are on rookie contracts coming up. So
yeah, and on top of that, Chris, like adding on to that, like you think these contracts will be worth it if you're building a team? Would you find it beneficial to go with young guys that are not necessarily there yet but could be, or even just like B-level guys that can get you production as opposed to paying JJ 35 to 40 million a year? You know what I mean? If you're building a squad.
I think that has everything to do with the team you currently have and if you believe in the quarterback you have, because I feel like your money, like Shah just said, we got receivers coming in every year, and every year pretty much the top receivers coming in, they doing damage, they dominating. But for defense, on the other hand, those one of those positions where it's not easy for you to come in your first year and dominate. So if you can get a rookie receiver who could dominate, but then spend your money on defensive players that been in the league, that been doing their business, I think that'd be a better route. But but when you already been in the league, like a CD Lamb, a Jamar Chase, it'd be stupid for their organization not to resign them because they are proven. You know what they're about. You know what they're gonna do. It's not a guesswork with them. So, I mean, for them, even if they didn't get their money yet, they're gonna get it. It's just on the organization whether they're gonna either let them walk or go ahead and pay up that money. Which, I mean, like the Eagles, they pay both of their receivers already, and as you see, every day a new receiver getting their money, and it looking like
just keep getting bumped down.
Deal. No, they just did it first.
Bump down and bump down. Yeah.
Like Shai said, like for a guy like Michael Pittman, I mean, Shaw's predicting him to be top 10, but as far as his career go, because of the quarterback situation, up and down, it was smart of him to go ahead and get his money, and he's already locked in. Instead of now, if the market keeps jumping up and he didn't get paid yet, what would be the benefit of coach saying, okay, we're going to pay you all the way up there, when it's like, well, we don't really know per se. We can project, we think you're going to be like that, but you haven't had just that breakout dominant year. It's like, okay, well, let me go get my money for him. I mean, that was smart.
I think it also depends. I mean, like you said, it depends on the team too. Like you can't just like everybody goes and points to the Kansas City Chiefs when they say, "Oh, the Kansas City Chiefs went young at receiver." Like number one, I know they've been there back to back years and won back to back years, and what have they been to 4 out of the last 5 or something like that. But it's still hard to get to a Super Bowl. Like you still have to have everything break right.
I
And
mean, let's be honest, the offense struggled this year. I don't care what nobody says.
exactly,
Yeah.
and the
offense was bad.
The offense very much struggled, and I don't think Tariq Hill. I don't think that they wouldn't have if it was Justin Jefferson in Tariq Hill's situation. I think they would have paid Justin Jefferson. I think no disrespect to Tariq Hill or anything like that, but he has gotten himself into some off-field stuff, and I think that has to do with part of the reason why. Because I mean, even when he's been in Miami, I mean, his name has been in the news for different stuff. I mean, obviously he hasn't gotten in trouble, no suspensions or anything like that, but there's still that possibility. So I think if it was Justin Jefferson who hasn't had those issues, or Devontae Adams, I think they would have paid. So like it just depends. If you have that dog that is clutch, like I think to that. I don't know if y'all remember, but a couple years ago it was Vikings versus Bills, and Justin Jefferson had that like one-handed snap. It was
like a 4th and 28 or some shit like that.
Yeah. When you have a guy that's doing that, you're gonna pay him. Like if you want to, you can say whatever you want about like teams have to be on a rookie quarterback contract and XYZ. You have to have the money and your edge rushers and corners, whatever bullshit people try to say about team building. If you have guys that are doing that, like at the end of the day, like
dog.
We just saw last year, Jamar Chase, when they were playing the Kansas City Chiefs, even though they ended up losing, it was like a 4th and 10. Joe Burrow throws it up to him in double coverage. He goes up and gets it. Moss is these two dudes. It's like Tariq Hill against the Bills. Like the catch that he had where he took it on the side, he outran the fucking pursuit angles. Like you can't beat that.
That's fair. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
We'll see. But with that being said, we got to go back to the main topic in the sports world right now. Congratulations to Chris's Boston Celtics in advancing to their second in the past 3 years, second NBA Finals in the past 3 years. Jaylen Brown. And before we get into the Mavericks and the Timberwolves, I really want to have a conversation about this
shit.
There's a bunch of stuff that's been grinding my gears. But congratulations, obviously, to Jaylen Brown winning Eastern Conference MVP or Eastern Conference Finals MVP. What is it? The Larry Bird Trophy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Larry Bird Trophy, which is what is in its second or third year. Third year, and being recognized. First of all, how do y'all feel? I mean, the conversation has obviously been a little bit about the Celtics having the cakewalk run or whatever. How do y'all feel about that? And then how do y'all feel about the conversation about Jason Tatum, or his stardom or lack thereof, and just the conversation around him in general?
Speak up, Chris.
This shit nasty, man. This shit is disgusting. I mean, I get what they're saying about the supposed cakewalk. I mean, I also think it comes from a place of, because the Celtics have been to the conference final like 5 of the last 7 years. For Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown is like 6 of the last 8. So I don't know if it's a fatigue thing with them, and it's just like, well, at the end of the day, they still haven't proven that they can win championships. So until they do, it's always going to be a narrative, whatever they do. I mean, they always say you got to be lucky to win. So, I mean, people get hurt. But ain't nothing they can do about that. There's literally nothing they can do about that. I mean, things get hurt. I mean, I don't.
It is crazy.
What they supposed to do? Just stop playing? I mean, it is crazy, but I mean,
like
it don't matter,
It is what
man.
it
You
is.
can win. We win in 5. You shouldn't have lost the second game.
yeah, that's it.
You win it. You win in 4. Shit, y'all was down. Y'all can't play in the clutch. You come back, but y'all shouldn't have been down to begin with. So I don't know what the fuck to say about that. At this point, they just got to keep working, and hopefully they can punch it in and win a championship. I mean, that's all I can say about that. And as far as the whole Tatum and Brown, I don't know if it's just because it's a long layover. They just want the storylines, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, for them to call out saying Jason Tatum wasn't happy when he clearly was happy. He clearly was celebrating. They just like, oh, I don't see the mirror image of everybody else being happy. He just look. It's just like, bro, why? Like, I don't know what the discord is between the NBA and Jason Tatum, but I guess they just want him to take over. But if that's just his demeanor, which it is, he's very even keel. In the court, he might, clap his hand or some shit like that. But when he's in the interview, he don't say nothing crazy. He just talk normal. He like, I just come in to work, this, that, and the third. I don't know what else they want from him. He could be like Ant, I guess. But Ant was on the verge of getting swept. But it's all good and dandy for him to do whatever he say. But when you got somebody who's just being professional all the time, it's a problem. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at it different because I love the Celtics. So.
It's all about playing into some narratives, and if you don't play into the narrative, then you get. It's funny because like that same kind of not the same type of situation, but I remember the talk after LeBron hit his shot to break the record, and AD was sitting on I think AD was on the bench, and didn't really acknowledge it, and they made that shit a huge deal. That type of stuff will open your eyes to how this shit really works. You know what I mean? And how they're just running with shit and just guessing. So, at this point, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It is interesting that he did end up winning Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I didn't have him winning. I definitely had Jason winning. And he had he was solid. He had a solid series overall if you look at it all 4 games. Of course, one of the games was, bad. I know Brown hit that clutch 3, crazy shot. But at the same time,
he had a 40-point game too.
Yeah, but at the same time, Jason snapped in that third in game 3. So it's and it was close. It was just one vote, which we can talk about voting at a different time about all these awards, especially But anyway, but I don't think it's nothing there. I don't think it's anything there. Of course, Jaylen Brown did come out in the interview and say, "I wasn't expecting this. I never win shit." You can take that a couple ways, and but I don't think it's anything there. But I do understand, like, if you're reading it, it's like, well, how do you feel about that? Never winning shit, at this point in your career.
I feel like that had more to do because he didn't get All NBA this year. He got it last year. He didn't get it this year, and he said his goal to get on a defensive team. Didn't get it.
Yeah.
So he just, he's just like whatever.
I get it. At the end of the day, when you're as good as the Celtics have been all season, and you're only having one guy really getting recognition, it's you gotta start asking some questions there. But first of all, the conversation about whether the Celtics had a cakewalk or not, even if they did, that's what happens when you're the 1 seed. Like, that's what you get to rest some of your guys at the end of the season because you won your games throughout the entirety of the season. You didn't have times where you were going on 3 game losing streaks or 3 out of 4 and stuff like that. So, that's what happens, and
by like 14, 15 games too on top of that. Like they won that shit
some
easily.
people are saying they should reduce the amount of games, which I guess I could see that to an extent, but at the end of the day, like, we see so often, like, these teams they're not even locked in at the end of the season, like in terms of in sync, have no team chemistry. So, I can only imagine when it's 30 less games, how, maybe that'll help concentration for the entirety of the season or something like that. You have a shorter amount of time to lock in, but I don't know. So I don't know about that, but
they made too much money to cut that shit down. That shit ain't going.
But as far as the other conversation, no disrespect to Jaylen Brown, but we've got to stop. Like, we've got to stop this. Jaylen Brown is equivalent to Jason Tatum. Like, he's just as good. He's better. He's more of a dog. All that nonsense. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect Jaylen Brown, but like Jaylen Brown clearly has told y'all by his actions, I am not better than this nigga. Like he came in a year after Jaylen Brown, and he let this nigga take over. Like clearly, he's telling you guys, like, hey, he's the one. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, just like I've seen a bunch of people try to say, oh, if Jaylen Brown was on another team and he was a lead dog, they would be in the same position. I mean, that's neat. I don't know. We don't know. It's a hypothetical. I personally do not believe that. But I gotta look back to Game 7 last year. Jaylen Brown had an opportunity to take over. Jason Tatum was hurt. I mean, he had the opportunity. They aren't Jason Tatum. Whether Jason Tatum is in the game or not, they were still better than that Heat team, in my opinion. So, I mean, he had his opportunity. Like, don't please, like, just stop the conversation trying to be like. I mean, there are clearly one person is better. Jason Tatum is like a 4-time first team All NBA at this point, and you're getting it over LeBron and KD, and I mean, like, come on.
And he knows it too. Like, I mean, look, without Jason Tatum, he's not getting an all NBA team. He's not getting that contract that he just signed. Without Jason Tatum, he's not getting that.
No disrespect, but
it just is what it is.
We seen the man dribble with his.
Man,
seen the man dribble with his left, man. Like,
I don't know about that. I think he would still get an All NBA even without Jason Tatum. I ain't saying first team though. I never say he'd get first team, but
maybe. I mean, maybe it's in the East. Maybe, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a lot less people at his position that are. And once again, I'm not trying to disrespect him saying he's not good because he is a good player. Mm-hmm. Like, he's an all-star in this league. He's not a superstar, but in my opinion.
Right.
But he's an all-star in this league. But, we got to stop trying to pit them together. Like, there's clearly a pecking order. Like, there's clearly a pecking order. Like, it's okay. There's just like Luka and Kyrie. Like, Kyrie has every right to feel like, shit, I can do everything Luka can do offensively. I probably do a little bit better. I mean, he has every right to feel that way. He's been a champion. He's put up numbers on. He's been in 3 finals already. He's put up numbers in the playoffs multiple times. He's hit just as many, if not more, clutch baskets. He's definitely hit a more clutch basket than Luka's ever hit in his entire life. So. But there's clearly a pecking order. Like, Luka is clearly he's bigger. He's a dog. Right? They're both dogs, but. Let's just stop doing that. Like, I don't understand what the purpose of it is. But that's enough of my soapbox on that. No, once again, congratulations, Jaylen Brown. Before we get into the Mavericks again, how do y'all feel about Rudy Gobert's biggest hater? Because not only did he, and y'all know who I'm talking about. I'm referring to Draymond Green.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily not necessarily the conversation about him and Rudy, but. He also said some stuff about, which, I mean, you can kind of say this is analysis that you could also say, like, it is a little unnecessary. When talking about the Celtics, he was saying, he kind of was saying, like, they are a very good team, but the reason that they struggle in the clutch, like the reason that they kind of struggle in the playoffs is because neither Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown can go left. He's like, they're really good with going to their dominant hand, but he's like, we beat them because we forced them to go left. How do y'all feel about, like, him? Some people could say, like, yeah, that's just basketball. But do y'all feel like that's hating, or like, how do y'all feel about it?
I think it's the totality of it all that makes it worse. As far as Draymond having this platform, because it stems back to what we've seen the last couple since he's had his podcast, when he would come in and talk about teams, talk about players. And doing stuff that he's currently playing. He's still he's playing at a high level still. Kind of a high level, you know what I mean? But he's not doing a lot of the shit that he's, you know what I mean? So it's like coming from him as a current player, it just comes off a little bit wrong to me. Like it comes off as hating to me because it's like, all right, like you can't do that shit either. So I mean, like, but I get the analysis that he's trying to like put across. I get that. It just coming from him. Like, especially on that TNT set, it's hard to even watch that. I haven't watched too many of those halftimes and post games, honestly, with him on there, because I just don't want to, like, he just seems so off. Like it doesn't match. It doesn't match the flow of everybody else. And
Too
then
many people at the table, huh? Shit,
it is too many people at the table for real. I don't like that shit.
I mean, I agree with that. It kind of sound hating because it's like the type of shit he's saying is stuff that they are saying in their scouting reports, in their team meeting. You don't come out and say in a press conference any day, yeah, as long as we force them to go left, they suck at going left, so we just gonna do that all game. They ain't gonna be able to do shit about it. That's like what he's saying. But this is stuff you talk about in your team meetings. You're talking about game plan. You're talking about what somebody's not good at. And for him to like personally say it every time and then just talk about it, it does sound like a place of hating, even though he might generally give him his analysis. Now, Rudy Gobert, we know he hate for sure. That ain't even no analysis right there. That's hate.
What they say, the smile that he had, the smile he had getting cooked by Luka.
It is, and it is a little corny to me with the hate on Rudy Gobert. Obviously, I mean, we talked about it a little bit. It's even a little bit corny to me just because Draymond himself has talked extensively about how, like, it's not the exact same, but like when he's on the court and people are, he does something and people are doing this or like saying like tee him up. It's kind of like to say like, every second you're sitting here trying to scream at everybody that Rudy Gobert is trash, Rudy Gobert is this, you could be potentially hurting this nigga's pockets. So like, it's just like, you're doing it a little extra, like for no reason. Like there's things that you could say like, yo, he could be better, blah, blah, blah. But like, obviously it's the way that he's like saying. Do y'all feel that it's because it's Draymond, or would y'all feel the same about any current player?
I feel like any other current player wouldn't do that shit. Like that sound like
except for Pat Bell.
It's like, well, and that's why he got banned from ESPN.
Well, he did it, yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I felt like we laughed about it, but technically speaking, you talking about Chris Paul, Cone, that's some corny shit.
That shit set a lot of people off. That shit set a lot of people off. So that means you do shit like that, and then like when they were chanting Draymond sucks, he was like Rudy sucks, not me.
Yeah, Rudy sucks.
You can't say that shit. Like come on, like you can't like as a current player. Like I get like and I saw some people saying Charles will say that shit. That's different. It's just different. It just is. You cannot say that shit if you're Draymond, but he does it on many occasions. So it's not a good look, especially for TNT and it's ending. If it's ending, you don't want to go out like that.
It's
with Draymond.
It's very interesting. But moving to Rudy Gobert in the Minnesota Timberwolves against the Dallas Mavericks, since we last spoke, obviously, things have turned. We expected that I think both of us or a couple of us picked the Timberwolves were going to win. And right before we knew it, it was 3-0 Mavericks. Obviously, tonight they're playing Game 5. It's 3-1 Mavericks over Timberwolves. Do you guys think that this goes to Game 7, or do you think that it's over tonight, or maybe Game 6? And then
I think Game 6. I think the Timberwolves can pull another one out today, but I just think eventually, Kyrie go come in the clutch in Game 6 and just go ahead and end it. But I do think the Timberwolves do come out with a win tonight.
I know I picked the Timberwolves to win the series, but I'm gonna go the opposite. I think the Mavericks kind of put them away tonight. I want the Timberwolves to win, just so it'll be a longer. So we don't have to wait a full week to get the NBA Finals and have some basketball on at least this weekend. But I think the Mavericks do put them away tonight. It's been a good series. I mean, it's crazy as that's the thing about this series, how it's gone so far. Like the Wolves have been in it until the end in most all these games every time. So I mean, it's not like it's that they're just unmatched. But we talked about it. We talked about it earlier in the playoffs. We talked about it during the season when Mavs were on their streak. Like you don't want to get in a close game with these guys. A lot of times it's going to come out in the way with Kyrie and Luka being as clutch as they are. You cannot get in a close game with these guys. Otherwise,
at all.
So
I mean, they would one game winning shot for being 2-2. So, but again,
it's different. Yeah, it's just different. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm just gonna go forward with the assumption that we're not gonna see history and have the first ever team come down from 3-0.
which will be crazy.
Looking forward to the NBA Finals. We presume it's going to be Mavericks versus the Boston Celtics. The obvious storyline is going to be Kyrie versus the Celtics and his return and some of the vitriol that's happened between him and the fans, the team. Secondary storyline is going to be Porzingis coming back to Dallas and stuff like that. What's the matchup that you guys are looking forward to, or the storyline that you're looking forward to in the NBA Finals?
Jason Kidd versus Joe Mazzulla. That's the main story. I'm looking for. I'm be honest with you. This is a chance for both of them to kind of cement. You know what I mean? Like, their footing in their respective organizations. With Jason Kidd, of course, he has a chance to do something like somebody I think they brought up on First Things First or whoever. Is he the best player that's become a great coach? You know what I mean? Because he was a great player. You know how to. So he has a chance to kind of like put his stamp on that Dallas. And you know how Mark Cuban is. If Jason Kidd wins this, he's their coach for as long as he probably wants to coach. You know what I mean? So it's huge. It's huge for him. And then Joe Mazzulla, of course, he's not getting respect. They still on ESPN talking about if Ime Udoka was there, they would have had a championship. No. Like even though and throughout the season he didn't get a lot of respect. So I mean, he got a chance to I guess put some minds at ease about if he's the right guy for this team. So that's the main thing I'm looking forward to, the coaching matchups, because it'll be a good one.
I do like the storyline of the whole Kyrie and Celtics, just because how it all went down, and then even after the fact, I know since that time he was in the Nets, after he like stomped on the center of the court, he don't have no hate for the team. He just had hate for the fans or whatever, which is fine. But I guess outside of that, it's just how the Celtics going to defend, Kyrie and Luka. Like, you have two all NBA defenders. I know we talked about this last week about, the matchup between the guards. I mean, you got two of the clutchest players in the NBA versus two of the best backcourt defenders in the NBA. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be a good series, actually. That's out of everything, I'm looking forward to that matchup.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a good series, and it's definitely going to, like I said from the jump, a lot of good storylines. But I think the one that I'm most interested to see, we talked a little bit about Jason Tatum. Obviously, we talked about Jaylen Brown. More of a focus on Jason Tatum. Is this low-key like a
redemption?
Not redemption, but a battle for best player in the league? Can you not say that? If Jason Tatum,
you can say that, but they're not going to take it that way.
If Jason Tatum, just hear me out.
I'm telling you, it don't matter if he scores.
I understand that they're not going to, but it's going to be a force of a conversation, because at the end of the day, in terms of a resume, there's no, outside of, maybe Giannis or Jokic, there's nobody that has a better resume over the past 4 or 5 years. Obviously, This season, if they win, depending on how many games they win, how quickly they win the series, it's historically one of the best seasons in NBA history, with Jason Tatum possibly winning Finals MVP. And then obviously Luka, been knocking on the door of being a potential MVP candidate. Obviously got to the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago. It's obviously Luka, if he wins, it's going to be the definite conversation. But if Jason Tatum and the Celtics win, it's in a sense he's forcing the conversation. He almost forced his way, he kind of forced his way into MVP conversations mid-season. And then towards the end, back half, post All-Star break, it kind of tailed off. But, you kind of start looking at it. First team All-NBA, who had a better season? First team All-NBA, best regular season record in the league by far, a championship, Finals MVP. So best season by anybody by far, and a Finals MVP. The conversation begins.
It's
probably would have made the Finals last year. So probably would have been looking at 3 straight Finals appearances.
Yeah, I get that. It's just like I get what you're saying. It should be a conversation, especially if Jason Tatum and the Celtics win. But I honestly feel like nobody's going to take that conversation. At least mainstream media is not going to take that conversation seriously, especially if Luka has a good series in spite of losing. If
Or is
Luka,
the best player.
if Luka
Yeah.
comes out and he's dropping 35, 40, but the Celtics are just, and I feel like the Celtics are a better team. Honestly, I do. So that's what they're going to turn to. Oh, this, Jason Tatum has the better team, or he has, and it's just Kyrie and Luka and a bunch of guys they just acquired at deadline. If they were to lose this series, that's going to be the narrative of it, and they're going to kind of shift that into having like Luka be. I still think Luka's great, you know what I mean? So kind of a lose-lose for Jason Tatum in that way, but I think it should be a conversation because that resume is what you said. Like if you really look at it, and we talked about it too, like who's that guy to kind of move forward, you know what I mean? We talked about it going from like all the way back, but even going from like most recently from Steph and Bron and them, he would be that if he wins this championship. Why not him? Why is he not the best player? Because he is there. He's perennial.
And then we also got to think right after, if he does win a championship, he's going right into USA basketball. If he has a great USA basketball and ends up being the MVP of that team with KD, LeBron, Joel, Steph, I mean the conversation. He has an opportunity to force the conversation to happen. In the next 4 months. He has a real opportunity to go from not even in consideration, laughable, to all right, we really gotta or even all right. I mean, hey.
But that's the thing too. Before you go, Chris, that's the thing. The range that he has, because Luka can win this series, lose this series, he's still gonna be. If Jason Tatum loses this series, is there any way possible for him to be back up there? Even if they go out and win, say, you know what I mean? Like how he's gonna be drugged down.
I think it depends on how he plays, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And then also Brad Stevens. I mean, just his progression as a college coach, NBA coach, now to a NBA executive, and building this team to be what it is. And I think everybody would probably agree, if the Celtics do win, they're a team that's poised to potentially continue to win. Obviously, they've been there, like I just said, should have probably been there 3 straight times in a row. So,
yeah.
And having their little LeBron type dominance in the East.
What do you think, Chris, about this?
No, I'm just saying, it should be like that, because like you said, the man came in the league 2017. And it's 2024. He only missed the conference final 2 times. He's been to the conference final every time. Like, that's like you said. Obviously, LeBron, he got past the conference final in the gap you were talking about. But having that kind of persistent dominance to get to the conference finals all those times, and then finally if you're able to punch it in, I think that's one of the biggest issues. Just people seem to forget that certain, like, when did LeBron win his first championship? He was 27, 28, something like that. And Jason Tatum's only 26, and it's like, because he had so much success, they just put that on him, and like, oh, well, since you didn't win. But like, what if, I don't know, what if Ant doesn't never make it? Y'all already anointed him to be the next MJ. What if Giannis don't ever go back? He won one, so he's the most dominant, best player in the world, sure, but he's never went back. Does that not matter? Does that not matter to the maturation, like all the time that you actually make a deep? We ain't talking about first round, second round exit. Talking about deep playoff run, and it's like, well, you didn't finish the job, so that's a knock against you. Which is why I said, as far as like he missed the finals. I mean, he lost in the finals 2 years ago, and it's like they always bring that up. You played bad in the finals. You played bad in the finals.
Really played bad.
I hope the conversation happens.
Steph just
Steph was just on another level.
That's what I'm about to say with the whole Draymond. When you said that earlier, he's talking about forced love. I'm like, I get that, but let's be real. Steph went crazy from game 4 to the rest of the end of the season. He was going nuts. Like, it had nothing to do with y'all defense. It was more so he was just,
and it had nothing to do with Draymond for sure.
It had nothing to do with him. Just to stop Steph.
But last thing I also want to say before we wrap it up is also got to consider winning a championship in Boston.
Yeah.
Winning would break the tie with the Lakers. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, they
break
both
the tie
got
with
17.
the Lakers, having the most championships ever. Obviously, winning for a historic franchise could also aid in that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we'll see. Next time we catch up with y'all, it'll be the beginning, probably the day before or the day of the NBA Finals. We'll officially know who's going to be in it. And we'll be in for a great series.
Can't wait.
But yeah, that wraps it up for us. Another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast. As always, follow us, like and follow us on YouTube, all social media, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.